Chapter 16. The Ork Moon. Surprisingly, the moon still had an atmosphere, but it smelled very bad. Has thought that it was like the smell of the underhives, but the stench of Xenos made it foul. The Orks didn't need to give the planet an atmosphere, but they did, and mostly because they could. And that was a frightening thought when thinking about the Orks. Has had the feeling the Orks raided the moon from other moons. While civilians and guardsmen went down the ship, Kor didn't. He couldn't. A commissar came and shot Kor the moment he refused. Has thanked him for preserving the honor of the arbiters. Captain Fernald thought the Orks got greedy and made a mistake. Gatan grunted. He wanted to believe the captain, but he didn't dare. More and more soldiers landed on the Orks' moon. The might of the crusade was upon the Orks. They lost all higher leadership in the big ships destroyed by the Orks, and nobody on the ground was a higher rank than that of captain. Luckily, their plan was made before leaving Terra, and their target was clear. A squadron of Ork flew overhead. Gatan wondered why they were doing it if they didn't attack them. For now, said simply reconnaissance, which was a weird thing for Orks to do in all respects. Fernald thought the Orks were doing more mistakes. A chimera appeared and Gatan climbed into his command vehicle before he and Fernald declared for Terra and the Emperor. The march of the Crusaders began. They had over 100 Lemon Rust tanks, 50 or so chimeras and hellhounds. It was an immense force. Going back to Has, she was behind the heavily armored vehicles. The Ork moon besieged the soul of the Terrans, and now was their turn to besiege it. Has considered that a victory. She fought for Terra, and felt the Emperor's hand pushing her back. The mountain range they met was unclimbable. They walked between the mountains until Gatan mentioned they had a target, and the march became a charge. The Orks charged at the humans. They had battle wagons with them. The human tanks outnumbered the Orks. Even by numbers, the Orks seemed fewer. The Lemon Rust tanks fired, and the Orks continued unfazed by their losses. The Orks fell under the numbers of the humans, but a mountain gate that released the Orks started to shoot at them. It was an Ork tank, 4 times the size of any tank. It was a super tank. Gatan ordered the ranks to surround the Ork weapon. Many tanks were lost trying to take the Ork mobile fortress down, but Gatan saw an opening that glowed red, then yellow, then white. He thought it was too easy. Unfortunately, he did so too late, and the Ork tank exploded. Back to Has. They recovered from the explosion and continued fighting against the Orks, but their strength started to overwhelm them. Of course, the Crusaders still had numbers to keep balance in their favor. They were fighting like the Orks. That was quite a frightening thought. The Orks started to retreat, and they died as they did so. Has was glad they won ground. It was a miracle. She basked in the glory and rage of defeating the Orks with fate alone, alongside the other humans. Some question of course remained, where was the Orks' heavy weapons and the artillery? But that was less important now. They continued their rush against the defeated Orks. The doors that led the Orks out closed, and the mountains started to move, shaking the ground and making Has fall to the ground itself. The commissar ordered them to delay the Orks' victory, and Has ran towards the doors that still had an opening. But it was too late. The mountains started to move. Somehow she reached inside the Ork moon when all others had died, crushed by the mountains that had started to encapsulate the infantry and the tanks and everything, and crushed them. Now to Narcissus and Kondos. They looked at the death trap sprung by the Orks. Above them, the Ork fleet awaited. 2 cruisers and the captured vessels. The Militant Fire's heroic dash to the Ork moon was a farce. They let them do that so they could kill the Crusaders. We gave them the Armada, he thought. The captain, his first mate, and whatever crew they still had barricaded themselves in the command bridge and armed themselves. It was pointless, but Narcissus wanted to die fighting. He wanted his life to have had that much meaning at least. And the pounding started.